Easy peasy. I had an interview with one board, and they said, wow, your resume is impressive, it's really terrific, but we think you'd be bored here, so thank you. Okay. And then another church I applied to, they said, wow, your resume is impressive. I've heard that before, thank you. And they said, but we're going to go in another direction because we're totally scared of you. Now they didn't use those words, they used unity words, but that's what they meant, that they were a little afraid. Did you ever have a time in your life when nothing seemed to land? It's like, I'm made of Teflon. I said, wait a minute, I get hired for every single unity place I go to. What's wrong with you people? There's something absolutely wrong here. Come on. I'm a star in unity. What's your problem? So for months and months I kept going, okay, I'm waiting for this one. Okay, that didn't work. Now I'm waiting for this one. I'm waiting by the phone. It must be him. Oh, dear. So here was one of the first of the two great lessons that I received from the past 8 months. If you believe something to be true and is part of what you consider to be the core of your soul, that you absolutely, honestly believe this to be the truth of who and what you are, your God self will find ways of proving it. Your God self will test you. Nobody's testing you from outside of yourself. You're only testing yourself to see, do I really believe what I'm going through here? Being on the spiritual path, the advanced work is now you get to prove it. You get to prove it. You come to the services. You are a new thought individual. You are on the path. You go, I really believe this with every part of my being, and now I have an opportunity to know whether or not what I'm saying is what I'm believing. How many actors here, how many people who are a performer? Okay, so when you say, I'm never going to work in temp, waiting tables, or bartending ever again. What happens? You do. Because when you say the word never, your soul says, let's try that out and see if that's the truth of who we are. And one example, I was in a show for about a year. I said, I'm really getting, after a year or so, you get kind of road, and when you're thinking about laundry and not what you're doing, you should probably leave. But you leave and said, I'm not going to come, I'm never going to do this show again, and then they call you a week later and they offer you more money. Okay, I won't think about laundry, I'll really focus and think about dinner instead. But that happens. So when you use the word, I'll never do this again, be very careful. Because you'll get an opportunity to prove whether you never will do what you're saying again. So with this unity stuff, I was like, well, I've been teaching this new thought metaphysics for 25 years now. And every single principle that I talk about on Sunday morning, I got to try and test over and over again. And I have to tell you something, I did not like it. I was not happy with having to tell you and then try it myself. I want just to tell you what you should be doing and not for me to have to do that. It's so much easier when I tell you what to do. And yet my soul kept choosing this very interesting detour I was going through in the middle of the desert. It even looked like Moses lived there. Mountains, trees, dry. That was, As we all know, the spiritual path is not an easy one. Can we agree to that? Yeah. If you're on the spiritual path, maybe it's easy for about a week. You have a beginner's luck, you refer to something, oh, look at that, it shows up, I love this kind of thing. But then you realize, that you go along and then the real teaching begins to kick in. The spiritual path can be fun, creative, fulfilling, beautiful, all those things. We're not denying that. We wouldn't even be here if that wasn't part of what we were doing. But our souls did not choose to come here to have an easy ride. We did not come here to coast through our life. We could have stayed on the other side for that. But we didn't. We came here to this rather tricky, difficult, strange, and oddly insane planet to go through and see if we believe what we know in our hearts to be true. We all came for a divine reason, we all came for a divine purpose, and you are doing your purpose, whether you like it or not. When you awaken to it, you can find the joy, and you can know this is really why I'm here, and it's so wonderful. I once, when I was on the road, got a game in a toy store. It was called Palm Beach. We played it every night after the show. The goal of Palm Beach was to get to the center, which was the country club, in an easy chair. You get to be 100 years old, you sit in the easy chair, and you die. That's the end of the game. But we have to wonder, is that the same as in life? Is your goal to live to 100? Oh, you lived to 100, great, yay, you won. What? If you live to be 100 or 100, my great aunt lived to be 105. And I said, how you doing? She said, it's very disconcerting, actually. Because, at 105, your time is kind of, like, oh, okay, Tuesday. So, we 100 or so, you go, well, I won, but did I fulfill my purpose? Did I do what I'm here to do on the planet? No, the purpose of our earthly journey is to remember how powerful you are. To remember how divine you are, to remember that everything that you need is already here within you. There's nothing missing in your life at all. And secondly, to let go of thoughts, ideas, notions, habits, and destructive patterns that prevent us from living fully as the God beings that we truly are. In my counseling work, I'm always amazed at people who come in. I may have known them a little bit, either from the service or coming to class or something. And I've always been amazed at how wonderful and talented and beautiful and admired these people are. And they come in and they tell me that they aren't any of those things. They said, I'm just fooling everybody. They think I'm wonderful, but I'm really not. And I'll tell you why. So I hear over and over again people holding on to an idea, a false idea, that we are not perfect and wonderful and powerful just as we are. Somewhere along the line, along the way in our path, we forgot who we are. We forgot we're divine. We're perfect already. Perfect doesn't mean that we don't have things to work on. It just means there's nothing missing from you. Your soul contains everything that you need and everything that you want. So what we're doing is we're sabotaging the joy, sabotaging our success, sabotaging this wonderful being who has a divine plan for all good, but for some reason we heard you're not worth it. Who are you to have the good? Who are you to try to do that? And then we think, gee, if they love me, there must be something wrong with me, and I better get rid of them. It's insane, it's crazy, but we do it. So what my journey has reminded me of, and still does, is that God, the creative universe, creative spirit, whatever word works for you when we talk about the divine, is totally supporting you, nurturing you, supplying you, protecting you, 100% adoring you just as you are. You can't be any more loved by God than you already are right now. We have to open ourselves up and let that love flow for it to work. But right now we're in these human containers that have a limited understanding of that truth. What we're trying to do is get by the planet. And we keep trying to think, how am I going to do it? Where all the time if we go to our hearts know how to do that. So get out of your head and get into your heart and let your heart tell you the truth and how that's going to work. A Course in Miracles is something really wonderful. It's one of my favorite teachings from A Course in Miracles. It says, if you only knew who walked beside you, if you only knew who lived within you, who was guiding you, who was doing this every moment of every day, how you would let go of the fear. How you would not fear anymore because you know God's got this. God is in charge. There's nothing I can do, or I can try to do it, but I sabotage myself when I think I know. Rather than go to my heart, go to my gut and say, yeah, this is the truth. This is the truth of who I am. It's so clear from the stories that kept popping into my consciousness about Adam and Eve, and during my meditation times, Adam and Eve, and the prodigal son, and Moses. I'm thinking, well, what is all this about? I knew what it was about. It was Spirit telling me, you're on this journey, so what do I need to know right now? In the book of Exodus, as we heard Stephanie share a few minutes ago, we heard that the Israelites were freed as slaves in Egypt, and they were making their way from Egypt to the Promised Land. Now, the Promised Land, from where they were, it was about 200 miles away. So, say from here to Boston. And so they were on foot, they were walking, and it took them 40 years to get what should have been, at best, 2 weeks. what happened. So they got to Cambridge, and they said, well, Harvard's nice. We'll stay here for 2 generations or so. Very odd. They got right to the end, and they didn't move. So let's see what keeps us out of the promised land. What keeps you out? What is keeping me out? So before leaving Egypt, they were partying. They were getting ready to go on the road. They were happy, lots of singing, lots of dancing. They were thrilled with the idea of what their new good was going to be. As we do, we get real excited. I'm going on a trip. I'm going to Palm Springs. I'm going to move there. I'm going to do this. We get so happy with the idea of what we think it's going to look like. I thought Palm Springs. Wow. Resort. Warm. Remember last winter. Warm, pretty. Mountains, trees, gay. Oh my God. Everything and you could want more. And they had a unity church. They hadn't had anybody for 7 years. They were looking for somebody to come and they were so excited. Oh my gosh, you're going to come here. Oh my gosh. So happy. So now, what we have to remember is there are angels to show up for you. When you are in the middle of nowhere, you have to call on your angels and know these divine beings from spirit are going to be there to help you. They always are. We just have to awaken to them and know that they're there. So there was an angel in Palm Springs helped me before I even got there. I couldn't have done it without him, and he did the same for us in our spiritual home, spiritual arts center. He spent hours and hours and hours finding this place for us. Gary Stevens has put hours into making sure that we are here. Thank you, Gary. Appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you so much. So then we set up. The people came. The first service we go, how many people are going to come? 10. Maybe we're going to go to brunch with 5 people. I don't know. But 100 people showed up. Very exciting. And they reacted. How do I put it? They reacted. Well, they were really elderly. They were quite elderly. Almost every single one of them that came in was Palm Springs elderly. You know. And that was lovely. I was just really happy that they were there. But they were elderly. Some of my best lines met with great silence. Until 5 minutes later, when it began rolling back. He said his dog was sick of him. Oh. I'll wait. So it was an interesting place to be. Now back to Moses. So once they were, I digress. Once they were walking through the Red Sea, you know, the red jello being blown by the hairdryer and all that. They got to the other side, and as they were walking, they realized what they had done. You ever do that? You ever leave and say, I'm so excited to go somewhere. You go somewhere and say, oh my God. What did I do? What did I do? There is no Liberty Travel. There is no air-conditioned bus to Jerusalem. They had to walk. And they brought nothing in their backpack to eat. They were 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. When they came to Marah, they couldn't drink the water because it was bitter. And the people complained, why do we got to drink? If you've ever gone for a day without water, you know, you go, I'm going to drink myself right now. 3 days, you're dead. They became very fearful. They finally found the water was contaminated. Before they had to do something about it before they could drink it. Now, you know, in New Thought metaphysics, we approach the Bible symbolically. We look at it from an inner spiritual perspective, that every character, every situation is you on your spiritual path to your good. Now, for the ancients who wrote it, we don't understand this today quite, but back then they didn't care. Facts, schmacks, who cares? It's a good story. The story is about your inner work. They didn't care if it was historical or not. It was a good story, and it told the people what they needed to hear. So whether this story happened or not is immaterial. It's what we can gather from it that is really important. The life lesson is always the most important aspect of any scriptural narrative. So what is water then? How do we look at this water thing? What does that really mean in my life? In New Thought metaphysics, we see water as the divine flow of life, moving through us, sustaining us, giving us everything that we need 24 hours a day, every second, every moment of the day. And although we had we had about 100 people on Sunday in Palm Springs, the offering also was kind of challenging. Eric Williams you know Eric Williams. He was there at the first service. He went and did the count, and he came out and said, well, you did 7. I went, 7,000, that's really good. He said, what planet do you want? 700. I went, oh, okay. So it was a little sparse for us at that point. And we had to figure out, we had to ask around and say, what was going on? Well, there are a number of pensioners there who actually didn't have a lot of money. We understood that. Some people were waiting to see if we were going to be successful before they gave anything, which kind of guaranteed that we weren't going to be there. And some people, I'm not kidding, they weren't giving because they didn't like my shoes. They didn't like red shoes. I had red shoes on there. So, there are different excuses people have for not moving forward with the good. So we barely had enough as we were going on to pay our rental space, our pianist, a singer. And Easter came, resurrection time, we closed down. Very interesting, kind of a backwards kind of a thing. And so we ran out of money, we did everything we could. We said, we love you, we bless you, and we have no more because we kept asking. And they said, well, So they were a little upset that we were closing, but we had no choice. We had run out of funds. We had run out of what we needed. And quite frankly, when I was meditating on it, people would say, are you disappointed? I said, I'm a little disappointed, but if I have to be truthful, not really. I kind of realized that as lovely as the people were, it was not my place. You ever do that? You go somewhere, it's like, go on a blind date, the person's great, they're good looking, they're smart, they're talented, check. It just doesn't, it's just not there. This is kind of what it was for Palm Springs. I said, okay, it was an interesting experience to go through all that. But I was a little concerned because I hadn't had a paycheck since the winter. It's like, God's got this. God's got this. Right? God's got this. My dog was so sick of me saying God's got this. I swear she looked at me, rolled her eyes, huffed, and jumped off the bed. Like, shut up. She was so annoyed with me. So I was looking at this water, this wonderful water that was moving through me, and I was discovering it was getting a little bitter. I was getting a little freaked out. I was trying to figure out how to make my life work. But what happens when you know the principle, God's got this, you have to keep getting back to that. Once in a while I was having, we have our dark days, our valley of the shadow days, and Gary would say, remember, this is what you're here to do. It's like, yeah, shut up, I need a drink. Just give me some wine, and I'll be fine. Just need to sit here and meditate on the wonderful palm tree and freak out about what I'm going to do now. Yeah. So there were the wonderful days of, everything's great, and then there were days of, what am I doing? What happened? People said to me, did you regret leaving New York, leaving Unity of New York? And through the whole thing, I knew I had to leave there. Through the whole thing, I knew that I had to go. So there was no regret there. It was just seeing this wide open blank page or canvas, as something in the Park with George says, and what am I going to do on this? I really had no idea at that point where it was going to happen. So the truth is, you hold on to your good and it shows up and it keeps showing up and it keeps showing up. Sometimes at the last minute. But as you hold to the truth, it does show up. Now, I haven't had a paycheck since February and my good keeps showing up. It's just the most amazing thing. I've never been out of work this long, for 8 months, and I just thought, wow. As I hold to the truth that the inexhaustible supply of God's good is here, it shows up in the most amazing ways. Like, oh, okay. So the truth that I knew that that my job is not my source, God's my source, and a job is just one channel that God has to work through. Well, God has many channels of your good to work through. If you're open and receptive to it, they will show up. So Trust Spirit knows how to get your good to you, and it's not just through your job. So this has been one of the scariest, most faith-filling, faith-building thing I have ever done in my life. Really and truly. It's about the manna that the Exodus writer talks about. Holding to God reveals that to purify the water, throw wood in there. What is that wood? Wood is a porous thing and it's solid at the same time. Wood is the truth that you continue to hold on to in your life. So it's strong in faith, and yet it's pliable enough to absorb what you need to know, what you need to have, what you need to know. So you're strong in faith, but you're willing and open to do it the way God says, this is how we're going to do it. So your faith is solid, and yet you're open and receptive and pliable at the same time. The inexhaustible supply of God's life is working in and through every single person here right now. If you've been out of work like I've been, you have to bump your affirmations up with passion and with joy and with conviction that God has got this. It's all taken care of. How is not up to you, and it was not up to me. Affirm with me, God is getting me through this.
God is getting me through this.
God is my supply.
God is my supply.
God has always had my back.
God has always had my back.
God has always had my back. I'm going to give you a director's adjustment. I want you to say that like you mean it, like you're passionate about it, like you're telling somebody, this is the truth of who I am. God has always had my back.
God has always had my back.
God's got this.
God's got this.
Again.
God's got this.
One more time.
God's got this.
Breathe in. You can feel the energy change in here. When you are passionately affirming the truth, the universe responds. God's got this. You don't even believe that. God's got this.
God's got this.
It's yours. You take ownership of that truth when you affirm it with emotion, with passion, with faith. No matter what is going on. That passion, that enthusiasm will lift you up and draw to you the good you're looking for like a magnet. Everything that you need, we're affirming, we're knowing, and we're letting it come forth. That energy that created you does every single moment of every single day, and it continues to do so in your life. Then the Lord said to Moses, I'm going to rain bread from heaven for you, and each day that people shall go out and gather enough for that day. Now, manna is a fascinating concept. Some scientists, I was reading about it online, some scientists are saying, well, we think it might be mushrooms of some kind. Which would explain a lot. But others are saying that it might be the crystallization of locusts and other insects. So there's a lot of protein in there, and they were eating the protein in the morning. They said it was very sweet. It tasted like honey, kind of a wafery kind of thing. And they said there was enough energy to get them through the day till they had quails and other wonderful things to eat later at night. But whatever it was highly perishable. They couldn't put it in their backpack and keep it for the next day. It was gone. It was rotten. It smelled terrible. Now sometimes the universe is going to give us, depending on where we are, just that food for that day. You're going to get that much money for that day for a while. You're going to get this realization for a while. You're going to get that much information you need for your career for a while. Don't fight it, simply accept it as part of the process you're going through right now. Our elder brother said what? Give us this day our daily bread, our daily stuff. So God is always providing it every single moment of every day. We want it in the bank. We want to see it. I want to see those numbers, and then I'll feel better. Yeah, sometimes it doesn't happen that way. But we have to know that it's happening in the perfect way just for you right now. So keep knowing that God is at work. And when you build up your affirmations, you build up your faith, you build up your realization that God is here, you can ride on that and you can live on that for a long time. Believe me, as I've been testing myself on this, I'm here to share this with you that this is absolutely true. You're getting through whatever you're getting through right now. Just hang on there, keep breathing and knowing Spirit is at work. You know, we test ourselves to believe, is God good? Is this really the good that I'm looking for in my life? When I left California, I was just guided to come back east. I had my, there was no Red Sea, just highway. Lots and lots of highway. My guidance was to come back east, and I wasn't really quite sure why. So I drove by myself this country. Has anybody ever gone across the country in car? Oh my God. Huh?
It's awesome.
It's big. Thank God I had GPS. I would have been in Canada by now. I've been in the Yukon going, where am I going? Have you ever been to the panhandle of Oklahoma? Don't go. As much as the musical shows that state with dancing girls and box socials, none of it is true. None of it. Musical lie. I'm not kidding. 3 birds committed suicide on my windshield. And I completely understood why. I had to stop once for gas. That was the only place I saw people. 5 men outside the gas station, extras from The Walking Dead. I would give you a ride if I could. I can't. I gotta go now. So I finally got back east, and I called Terry, and I said, I'm coming back east, I don't know where. And she said, you're staying with me. Stay as long as you need. So she's been housing me since I've been back, and I can't tell you how grateful I am. Another angel. Angels everywhere. Everywhere. They're there. Open your heart, open your eyes, open your mind. And let people help you. Have you asked for help? Sometimes we say, I'm just going to affirm, God is my good. Yeah, but God is going to be your good through people sometimes. Put it out there. Say, this is what I'm looking for. If they can't help, maybe they know somebody who can. Let it be known. Cast your net wide, as Jesus said. Let your good be known, and let angels help you. That's why we're here. That's why I created this. We're here for each other. We're here to help you. We're here to love you and to pray and to support you, however we can. So the second lesson that I got, I think may be even more important than the first one, which was very important in itself. The reason I left, and I shared it with those who were at the first meeting over at St. Luke's a couple of weeks ago, was that the situation that I was in at the other ministry, I found it was toxic to my well-being. I found it was affecting my health and my well-being and my mental state, my emotional state. Because I was unwilling to make the changes in my life there that would have alleviated the problems I had, I chose to leave rather than divide and destroy the ministry that is up now. I thought I was making changes for a new life, which I was. But the new life had to do with coming home to New York in a new ministry. There's a lot of news there. So I had to go away from there. I had to go completely away to do the healing work in the desert, and then come home and find what I really am here to do. But it didn't happen until I changed my thinking about the possibility of being able to do that. When all the Unity doors and windows and everything else seemed to be shut tight, and again I felt very Teflon-y, I said, I get hired. What is this Unity thing? Well, most of the Unity churches are not hiring at a professional rate. And the ones that are doing a new kind of a form that I don't fit into anymore. I've been away for 16, 20 years, and I came back and said, oh, the Unity that I knew is different. I did not leave Unity. Unity left me a few years ago. So I realized that what I'm doing has diverted from where Unity is. And I was sharing that with Gary and go, what am I going to do? And he said, why don't you go independent? Oh, I can't do that. I'm a Unity minister. And I gave him all the reasons why I couldn't do that because I'm a Unity minister. And then I meditated on it for a day or so, and I went, and the Spirit said, why not? This is what you're here to do. You are a minister, and your home is New York. So here I am. Home in New York, doing my ministry. Thank you. It's so wonderful to be back. I can't tell you. You know, there's a great line in Sunday in the Park with George Move On. It's one of my favorite Sondheim songs ever. It says, anything you do, let it come from you, then it will be new. Yeah. It's what we're doing here. If you choose to be a part of this, this is what we're doing. We're going to take our new thought teachings and expand on that. Look at all the different religions and all the different traditions. What works for us? What rituals work for us? What can we celebrate that other people around the planet are celebrating? And how can we take that as ours? Take that and incorporate it into our spiritual unfoldment. It'll be very exciting, and you're a big part of it. So I want you to think, well, how can I offer my talents here at Spiritual Arts Center?